I was just having a conversation with myself on the train before, and I thought I'd share it. I was sitting there feeling into the beauty of now, the reality, the actual life I currently inhabit. And in this particular gratitude, it was to do with my partner, Nayla. She is in so many facets, so many aspects, characteristics, and livingnesses, a dream that has landed in. And when I say a dream, I don't just mean in the poetic way like, oh, you're a dreamboat. I mean an actual foretold knowing. The qualities, the expressions, the shapes, the essences, I knew before I met her. And I was just sitting there on the train just now, thinking back and just like sending a time telegram back to myself, just going, it happens. Yes, you end up with her. You arrive there, those things you feel, those things you know. Yes, I'm in it now and it is here. It is really alive in me. And I don't know if it's possible to talk to yourself across time and dimensions, but I think it makes the most sense of any of the sort of supernatural powers that I can think of. To talk to yourself, an inner voice, that intuition. Is that possibly what it is? Those times when we have a gut instinct, those times when we have a dream, those times when we fall in love with something that doesn't yet exist, when we know we should be somewhere where something is more familiar and more home than anywhere we've ever been. Perhaps it is us. Perhaps we sometimes connect with an experience that is so pivotal, so core, that it just ripples through time, that it stays with us. And if that is the case, I wonder, what are the messages coming from our future selves? My best friend, Alpha, has just been overseas. She just got back from the States. And we were talking about the way that her life kind of fell apart in many ways before she went to the States. You know, moving out of the place that she was in, getting robbed, and a relationship ending, all these things, like such hardship, such emptiness. And yet then popping across the planet to places that she doesn't usually circulate in. She arrived in a place where she has now created a whole album and entered in or met someone new. And that is an entirely new reality. It's like dimension hopping. It's like stepping across into another person's shoes. And we can do that by relocating ourselves in space, by jumping off the track of our habitual, by stepping out of the known. And it's scary because what we know is convincing. This wall here is convincing that it exists. All of the stories that led me to this place make up so much of who I am. So that nothingness, that emptiness, not knowing, is an extremely harrowing space to navigate. And yet, despite our senses, if we feel a voice, if we know a truth that is calling to us, that is being lovingly placed into our body, into our senses, I think it's time to listen to that. Because just as stable as this reality is around me, there will be another stable reality elsewhere, with people with no more resources than I currently have, no more expertise than I currently have. It's not hard to live elsewhere. Sure, there's different cultural settings, and sure, you might have to pick your place, but there is a plethora of other lives, other careers, other relationships, other ways of being, other religions, other political movements, whatever you choose. Like, they're just thriving everywhere. And you know, if someone was to walk up to me now, we could have a conversation, we could become friends, we could collaborate together, money could flow, ideas, but they would need to be here in front of me. So it's about, how do we get in front of the people who are the custodians of a different reality? We are all keepers of a new reality. We are all holders of our circle of friends, of our network, of our skill set, of our perception, but we need to connect. And that's why, I guess, with Open World Theatre, I'm so keen on being in the world, being in spaces like this, public spaces, starting to liberate ourselves, starting to attempt, we don't have to nail it, we don't have to be masters of self yet, but just to attempt to soften ourselves, to allow expression, to search, to fall in love, to, if someone was to witness in a moment a human being who is truly enamored with the moment, they might walk past, these people walking past right now, overhearing me right now, may have a flicker of recognition. Just going, oh, I remember when I last felt like that. Or like, oh, isn't that sweet? Or maybe he's crazy, I don't know. But I do believe it's a beautiful service to go out in public spaces or to travel, to have a spontaneous moment of instinct and get off at a different train stop, take a different bus, fall in love with the beauty of numbers. Maybe I'm going to go down this lane or on that bus. Feel into all of the senses that are going outwards, not just inwards. The inward senses are things like light, sound. That very much pins us in. It has our attention sort of stuck. The outward senses, I believe, are love, are desires to give, are passions, are purposes. And I believe there is just as much coming out of us as there is going in. In fact, for universal law, I think that would probably be exactly the case. Well, as much goes in as goes out. That's also a really nice causative way of thinking about it, because then if that is the case, these are all hypotheses, but it's just about giving as much as we can, because then we enter into the exchange with the universe of being able to receive conversations, being able to receive ideas, being able to receive affection, being able to receive opportunities, etc. And what better place to be guided from than from a future self? Maybe a self that is on the other side. And also to enjoy the mystery. My friend Naz has this line which I've held on to since she first said it to me, is this is the fun part right now. When you're right in it, you don't know how it's going to resolve, you don't know if it's all going to fall apart. That time when you're at the edge of your seat, that's a fun part. It'll be plenty of years, hopefully, when we can sit and reminisce and understand how it all turned out. But the vivid nature of possibility, the choices that we have. I often talk about this idea of 2 points in time. Hey, everyone who's watching, thanks for tuning in. I often talk about this idea of 2 points in time. This universe is created in dimensions, and one way I try and fathom that is in points. I am a point, another person is a point, and we have different dimensions that can build on top of that. So 2 points can also be separate in time. One is now, one is the future, or one is now, one is the past. So when I think back to the past, it's immutable. I can't necessarily change it. I can change my perception or how I remember it, but it's arguable. But let's go with the idea I can't change the past. But right now, I am in my current circumstance, and I'm here in Sydney. I have X amount of money in my account. I have X amount of networks, whatever it is. That is because of the past, which is unchangeable. But when I shift those 2 points from past to future to instead present and future, I realize that now is the past moment of my future self, and it is mutable. I can change what I do right now. I can talk to someone on a bus. I can take up playing the piano. I can do things, and my future self will benefit, and they will be in a very different reality to where else I would end up if I made a different decision. One case in point being my name. Right now you're watching Atlas Talisman, and Atlas Talisman is in that relationship I mentioned with Nayla Rose. That case would not be the case if my past self changed my name to a different name. I'll tell you why. I was going to change my name instead to Zeus Zimmerman instead of Atlas Talisman. Had I done that, Nayla would not have accepted my friend request on Facebook because her previous partner's surname was Zimmerman, and it just would have felt. We've talked about it. Just would have felt like I don't want to welcome that in, and I would not be standing here gushing on Facebook Live, talking about how I am now talking to my past self, who knew Nayla's face since my childhood, who knew her hair, who knew her fingers, who knew her voice, who knew her lips, who knew her way, who knew her generosity, who knew her care, who knew her nurturing, who knew her creativity, who knew her spirituality, who knew her. I'd be still searching, I'd still be looking. And I wouldn't know that decision in the past, changing my name to this instead of that, would have made all the difference. And that's the beautiful tragedy of life. We don't know. We have made decisions which have totally changed our lives. We have made quote unquote mistakes which have cut off doors and closed opportunities. But I think the key thing for me is to remain in flux, remain open to the amazing sliding doors and turnstiles in the present moment. That will change our future. And one of the ways I'm proposing to do that is to talk to yourself through time. There's a guy named Jesse Elder who talks about time piercing. Check him out, really interesting guy to do with meditation. And he talks about the idea of being able to superimpose ourselves in meditation over past or future versions of ourselves. So you can lie there and, you're going to be in the same body tomorrow and yesterday, same organs. It's just about the senses. So why not displace ourselves and feel into, like really feel, not think your way into, but feel into where you were, how things were. Particularly to do with powerful things like love. If you follow Joe Dispenza, he talks about the idea of the mind being able to create sort of things, but when you have the passion, the power, the energy of certain heightened level of emotion, that really starts to infuse the nervous system. It really starts to make that a reality in your body. So Jesse Elder talks about this idea of feeling into your past, then feeling into the present, and then feeling into yourself in the future. Not as an imaginary thing, but really feeling into this reality. And the way I like to think of it is that you're creating an anchor point in the future that you can guide yourself towards. You can make decisions which seem to be completely disrelated. You might go, I want to eat this today, or I feel like going outside in the rain, or that person, I'm really not liking this conversation, I should exit this. These are little subtle nuances that might not seem to make sense, but maybe there's a superconscious or a subconscious which can attach to an anchor point we place in our future and can be guiding us there. A bit like that guy Q. I'm not sure if you watched Quantum Leap. I loved it as a kid. MacGyver and Quantum Leap were two shows I really loved. So Q would work out probabilities. So there's this doctor who's leaping through time, and Q's like 60% chance you're here to do this or to do that. So maybe our subconscious, it's a pattern recognition machine. Maybe it can be going, okay, so in our meditation, we've regularly created a certain reality in our feeling body, and it's more likely that you'll end up there if you don't eat that, or if you do go out this way, or if you follow this particular rabbit hole. And I think that's a really exciting place to navigate from, and to actively do it, to actively talk to yourself in the future and in the past. And there's a whole thing about parenting, the inner children that we all are. We're all lost. We're all trying to hold up a facade of knowing what's going on. But the whole horse on the back of which we are riding is in a really mangled direction. All of the institutions and industries, and it's a real, it's quite humorous. It's a real mess. So we don't know what we're doing. There's a lot of inner children, but perhaps we can also parent ourselves. Like that earlier version of myself, literally in my childhood or my adolescence. Imagine receiving me now, 37-year-old man, confident. I know I'm in a relationship. It's not just hope. I am in it. I hold this woman. I spend time with this love. I see the sentience. I share the spiritual connection. So I have certainty in this moment because it is a reality. So imagine me, this 37-year-old person with certainty and actuality, being able to hold my adolescent self or even younger and say, hey, this beautiful reality exists. And I think that's what so many of us are missing, that parenting, that holding in the past and also in our present. And maybe I can reach out right now to my older self, who is better with money or who has realized the open world theater dream. Maybe I can feel into that. And so that's what I'm proposing today. Hey, Hannah. Hey, Jeffrey, Phil, thanks for watching. My proposition is potentially we can talk to ourselves through time. And maybe that's what intuition is. And if that is the case, then let's talk to ourselves. Let's meditate. Let's give ourselves, let's calm our past heart by giving ourselves some surety or some guidance as to how the mystery of the past actually ends up. And then let's consciously feel into our future and place these magnetic orientation points, these navigation points, so we can find our way into a place of our creating. And when that intuition comes, jump, be willing to change. Because I know the uncertainty feels hollow sometimes, and I know you sometimes have to empty before you can refill. But I really, really know, without any shadow of a doubt, that the lives we lead are so changeable. Sometimes it can be a medical something that happens within a minute. Sometimes it can be a gradual transition. Sometimes it can be horrific. Sometimes it can be magnificent. But I'm sure we all know, we're completely certain that, if you suddenly move town, you'd find new friends, you'd find a new career, this and that. And be willing for the creation and the destruction. Let's not be so nice to the world, so nice to our friends who want us to stay the same, so nice to whoever, our family, our partners, our colleagues, that we just want to keep things the same, because that's conservation. Now, conservation can seem really good in many cases, but also if you look at the emotional scale, conservatism is really smack bang in the middle. It's not exactly an evolutionary force. And I understand our desire to protect things, to respect things, but I think it's also part of the paradox of living on a planetary Earth as a spiritual being, that we have to understand the nature of change. And we would be egocentric, and I believe naive, to think that our understanding of the current status quo, the homeostasis, the balance that we currently perceive, is the best way for things to be. This planet has been born out of tectonic plate shifts and storms of volcanoes and extinctions and rebirths. Many things had to die so that we could be here today. And the climate will continue to change. I'm not even going into a massive climate debate. I'm just talking about allowing change. And I think that's a really healthy place to be, especially in a reality that's in a continual state of flux. That is the actuality. And if we go into conservatism and we just try and conserve and keep things as we are, that preservation, I believe, is suffocation. Because I don't think things can remain the same. They either have to go up or down. That's the nature of a wavelength. That's the nature of things going up and down, changing, and very alive. Being alive requires that movement. And so I think we have to take each moment. The best version of conservation that I can understand is true gratitude. Really soaking things up when they're there, really appreciating the particular environment we're in while it's alive, while it's flourishing, when it is its time. And then when it's not its time, not presume that we can connect all the dots to understand the ramifications of one thing moving away and emptying, going hollow, because we don't know what will fill it. We don't know what conditions need to exist for the next rebirth. There is always something which is phobic, and there's always something which is fire, like a lover of, a mania of. So what we're in right now is good for us and good for certain things, but things will change and they will help something thrive, and they'll also kill something else. And I think we have to be willing to kill some versions of ourselves too, talking about it in a subjective view. You have to be able to let go some realities, because we can't just conserve these happinesses. So change is the only constant, absolutely. So yes, this has all come from a fun little talk to myself on a train when I spoke back to myself and I said, hey, you get here, it does arrive. Just keep loving, keep feeling, keep daring to lean into your most beautiful, exquisite dreams and visions, because they might actually be coming from a future version of reality. Not certain, not locked in, but possible. And maybe that's where you're receiving the signal from. Thanks for listening. If you're in Sydney, I'm doing an open world theatre workshop tomorrow. Then I'm in Byron next week, then Melbourne. I do stuff online. I'm here for the adventurers. It's a call out to the rebels, the creators, the inventors, the pioneers, the visionaries, the creators, the craftsmen, the magicians, the leaders, the journeymen. All of these people who have deep passion, whose energy body, whose mental imagination, whose spiritual body, whatever other component parts of yourselves are almost too big for the skin that you're in, too big for the fishbowl you swim in, too outrageous for the circle of friends you keep, too dissonant for the workplace. Like, I know, I understand. We are keeping this reality pinned in place through pylons of fear, because we're trying to hold that tent top tight so the water doesn't get in, because we don't like it wet, because that connects everything. When everything's soggy, heat goes really quickly, electricity goes really quickly, and emergencies. We start to talk to strangers. When we are under duress, we are squeezed like a sponge and our magic seeps out. But things change so damn quickly in that state. And so we try to keep that tent top tight so the water doesn't get in, so we can remain dry and separate. But that's not aliveness to me. So if you want to feel that aliveness, I'm not saying that I'm like the faucet, the tap, the fountain of aliveness. I'm just saying that I like to be around aliveness, and I won't squash you. I won't dampen you. I'll just go, oh my God, and watch you and wonder, try and match your thunder, and we can create a storm. Because sometimes we need to be able to willing to get into the coffin so that we can be reborn. How often have we softened down into the mushy muck of compost so that we can honestly say that we are lost, and then we can once again find our way up the spine, and maybe we can pronounce ourselves like a sprout out of the crown, and all of us can gather around and look at that one single flower that managed to survive while all of the other around it withered. And I hope it's in us to actually be happy for what's to come next, regardless of the death that surrounds it. So I'm announcing Open World Theatre, as always, is alive and welcoming in new players. connect up with me, share this, tag people. I want to become superhuman, not in an egoic state, but to honor the actuality of nature. Do we think that how we perceive of reality through these senses, through these eyes, these ears, this mouth, this taste, this temperature, this gravity, do we really think that's the actuality? Or can we perhaps soften into the fact that there are so many wavelengths going around us that we are not privy to, that perhaps we can reach out of the normal, as uncomfortable as it may be, and start to die to this version of humanity and become post-human? We've already started to expand our physiology by becoming cyborgs in some ways, by merging mechanisms with us, by merging technology. Can we continue to soften through spirituality, through emotion, through art, through experiment with the fabric of society? Can we rearrange cities? Like, these things are totally arbitrary. These huge organisms, these monoliths, the ways that we try and represent our humanity and its hierarchical structures of power are completely made up. They're so flexible, can fluctuate, and yet we don't allow it because we're so damn scared of what happens when these buildings empty out and that high rise is flattened and we don't know how we're going to get back again. But we do. Keeps going round and round. So yeah, I'm just enjoying myself right now. So I'm talking for quite a while, but thanks for staying with me. Help me make these interfaces, H2H, human to human interfaces. There are a lot of people doing a lot of exciting things in technology, but for me, technology is art, humanity, conversation, and society itself. We're doing all this kind of innovation to do with computers, to do with apps and gadgets, to do with the Internet of Things. I'm not sure how close or real this whole quantum computing thing is with Elon Musk. Like, it's not my field of expertise. I'm fascinated by it. Tim Berners-Lee, I'm damn glad that guy invented HTML and we've got the internet to link all these things. But what I know is a person in space, a couple of people going face to face, feeling that electric liquid lightning up our spine and going, I don't know how to dance, but it is moving me. I'm not in control. Like a surfer on a wave, there's more power beyond us, and it's just about us shepherding ourselves into the surrender and trusting maybe a future version of ourselves to guide ourselves out of this predictability, because control limits experience. That's what Naylor says. Reprogram the human hard drive. Yes. If you follow this guy, Jesse Elder, he talks about that the human software, absolutely. And that's the cool thing about reality. I'm thinking about software and hardware and humans and the brain and the mind, all these sort of things. There's so many components. We are not a single unit. If we were, we may be immutable. Because if we changed ourselves, we would change everything and we would no longer be ourselves. But I think we are balanced as a delicately aligned series of component parts, and each one can be shifted and rearranged. We are beautiful Frankensteins. And so if you look at hard drives, what would that be? Or hardware, I should say. That would be, I guess, this physiology. And then if you're making a computer, that's kind of a bigger deal to get a new screen or get a new keyboard or get a new bit of the motherboard. But the software changes a lot. And I guess the software for me in this case would be our frame of mind. You could think of that as mental image pictures. You could think of that as energies. You might even think of it as spiritual purpose, all these kind of things. And that is pretty quick to change. When I look at the 5-body system, I think that we have more direct control over the higher ones. If you had it in a line, so looking at the top, say, if we wanted to go linear, it would be the spiritual body. In which case there's no time. It just is. It's you making a decision, you being, that's immediate. Dropping one down from the spiritual body to the mental body, we've got the mechanics of time, consideration, comparison, ego, all that kind of stuff. You can definitely change your mind, but it's one step away from just being in the spiritual body. The next drop down from mental body will be the energetic body. And so these are things, you feel that tingle, you do shift, your mind changes, you can change your energetic body through a consideration, etc. Through having a memory, we could be aroused by having a picture, we could be upset by having a memory. So that's one step further. The step beyond that would be the emotional body. So after these energies shift in our body, the chemicals change, the hormones squirt, we start to feel all these things. We can control that to some degree, but sometimes our emotions get better of us. We know that, right? External hard drives for humans. Hey, brother, Keshet. Oh, what am I talking about, brother? I'm being so damn gender specific. I don't know who's on the other end. Apologies for presuming. But we're going to train. Keshet, we're going to train together. Looking forward to that. So, bringing it back to the body system. We've finally got this physical body. And we have this aspiration, which we know is possible, to program our heart. To shift our heartbeat, to program our immune system. But these things are like, Buddhist monks or gurus or Wim Hof, these things are beyond the usual grasp and control of what we have. And so we've got this system of layers which we have lessening ability to connect with. And yet each one of them presumably is changeable. Even right down to the body, we've got stem cell research, we can have organ transplants, we can have implants, we can have all these sort of physical changes. Not only that, but from a physiological point of view to do with the mind, we can also start to reprogram, neurologically. We can really, I like this idea. I was reading through my ears an audiobook, Joe Dispenza talking about how genes are really just genetic potentials. For them to be expressed, it takes them to be unlocked. And that can actually be a mental and energetic and emotional physical process to actually shift that. So we can actually change this physiological body. We can definitely change the emotions. There's loads of stuff to do with psychology to do with that. Then, of course, we can do energy work, which is very popular right now in the new age. We can definitely change our minds. Lots of interesting things about that. And the spirit, that's up to us to debate. But the point being, we are updatable, we are changeable, we are mutable. We are not in a fixed state, and arguably we have to be changeable to be alive. So I'm just so damn excited at all the upgrades and what does it look like to have an internet of people. So if you're interested in what I do with Open World Theatre and what the current edge is for me, one of the edges is how can we as a live setting create art as a subjective experience. Usually when you go to the theatre, it's an external experience. The art's over there and me from a distance appreciates it. But what's it like to be in an experience? What's it like when the art itself is subjective? It's inside me. And you could say something like going to a rock concert or being in a mosh pit. That's the kind of experience that we're talking about, because it's not about being separate from it, but it's actually about being inside it. One of the ideas I like, this is from David Bowie. He was talking about how the internet is the new rock and roll. He talked about how rock and roll became popularized and kind of the rebellious soul got sucked out of it a bit. And I just believe that we have different tools at different times. We evolve as humanity and we need different things at the bleeding edge to help us break through. So the internet came, and he said that one of the reasons the internet is the new rock and roll is because it's an artwork that's not complete until it's interacted with, until there has a user and their interaction shifts it and changes it and then completes the artwork. So for me, like I said, trying to have these correlations of my fascination with technology into my field of work, which is about art and humans in space, I wonder what a interconnected experience is like for a live theatre setting. What's it like to be with a group of people who are actually somehow exchanging some kind of data and information and shifting their stasis? What if we thought of each individual person as an organ in an organism, and when we step into a theatre space, we create a new entity like it has its own heartbeat, like we are circulating oxygen, we are changing component parts, like a chemical interaction where things shift from one thing to another. Hydrogen, oxygen. What's the equivalent in a group of people? I guess it's words. I can give you a word, and then your mind shifts and changes. Like it's like a chemical shift. We can have physical contact, we can wrestle each other, we can paint pictures. These are like the chemical reactions that happen on a cellular level on a single organism, and I believe that's what we're doing when we're creating real life humans in space organisms through theatre. And that for me is the space that I want to work in, and that's what I'm going to be working in tomorrow night. I'm doing a show called I'm Just Making This Up, which is an improvised show based around this concept of what's real to me in that moment and co-creating an experience that's subjectively the art, not about you watching me, like you're in it. Open World Theatre is access all areas. There is no othering. It's just real life. So yeah, this is our upgrade. This is our constant update. And I believe that we are a product of our times as much as our times are a product of us. Often we can have this guilt feeling like, and I just want to also remind, if anyone's watching this, please tag, please share. I want to get the signal out not just so my voice is heard, but so the idea of interconnecting is shared. Because what I dream of for open world theatre is this interconnected co-creation across time and space. Artworks don't just have to be location-based either. We can be gathering in different groups, like different nodes, and sharing an experience, because there's so much power. Even just a small number of people, 100 people actively doing something can really shift reality. So that's my encouragement to share this if you're watching. But what I'm talking about now is this idea of the live theatre space being the reconstruction of ourselves as individuals. And why that's important, I believe, is because we need to get into synchronization with the times. To some degree, I feel we're inalienable from it. Like, it's not just a matter of the guilt of like, oh shit, human beings grew up, made all these bad machines, and now the environment is dying. I think that's not quite the way things work. I believe it's kind of a give and take, as with all things. I believe that whether it be physically, energetically, spiritually, whatever it is, the planet itself, the societies, the cultures, it evolves, and we are also a product of it as much as it is a product of us. So therefore, having billions of people mining even, like, I really like to leverage these things against the horrible things too, because we can become passive through the overwhelm of the impotence we have to try and change everything. I don't think we need to change and stop all the bad things. I believe we need to divert. Because who, when you had a herd of bulls running at you, who, when you have a tidal wave coming, would stand there and try and resist it? It doesn't make sense. It's not the power that's happening. Similarly with economies, we can be frustrated about consumerism, where all the money goes, but at the same time, why not just steer it? Sure, people are ego obsessed. People like to talk about themselves. They like to see themselves. Video games like Minecraft, services like YouTube are so successful because everyone gets to feel like they are part of it. They like themselves. If you look at the richest person in the world, according to online statistics, it's Jeff Bezos, the guy who runs Amazon. And below him are a bunch of people who own things with microtransactions. Things like fashion are way up there. We like these unimportant things. Fashion, bits of clothing, shoes, all these sort of things. So rather than getting frustrated at ourselves for that, why not instead somehow co-opt all of that energy that goes into fashion and still allow people to be ego-driven, still people to tap the likes, and still have people on their phones, but use the phones as a portal to navigate that fashion self-obsessed energy into something which is more productive. The point being, don't fight the current state. The current state is the current state for a reason, and it's not just because of some political decisions. It's because of many things, some of which are within our perception, some of which are very much beyond it. And so in some ways you could say that the planet itself has created, it's like if you were in your body and you created a cancer, is that just the cancer's fault? Or have you got something to do with it? Is it somehow a lesson? How many people have these really huge lessons? I know the guy, I forget his name now, the guy who invented rebirthing breathwork, which is a modality I really enjoy as well, had, I think, a terminal illness, went home, lay in the bath, surrendered to the concept, and came up with his modality. So there's huge lessons in these really horrible sicknesses and things like that as well. It might be because you needed a lesson from it, therefore you got cancer. It might be because you had a really bad diet. It might be because you're genetically predisposed. I don't know. But the point is, you have something to do with it. So if this earth has the infestation or parasite or even cancer of humanity, maybe she or it has something to do with us being here, and maybe it has something to do with the state that we are currently in. Maybe. These are hypotheses, but they do seem to align to a lot of other analogies and ideas. And I think that when you find universal truths, they apply on all scales, both the microscopic, the macroscopic. And so if you look at that analogy, we are also a product of this planet. So let's wake up to why that is. If you look at Dr. Demartini's work, he has a simple 13 question questionnaire that you can ask yourself, because he believes that our purpose is inalienable from ourselves. We are always going to honor it to some degree. For example, even if you wanted to go, let's talk about eco, you want to go and save the forest, and you're like, shit, I am violating my purpose. I'm not out on the frontline battlefield. He'd say, okay, cool, what are you doing instead? What do you surround yourself with? What do you spend your free time and attention on? Well, I've got heaps of exercise books around me. I usually go to the gym each morning. I spend my spare money on smoothies and health drinks. Well, maybe your purpose is aligned to health and wellness as opposed to saving the environment. It's about facing the facts of what is. Where do you spend your energy? Where are you flowing your lifeline? And per Demartini's analysis, that is aligned with your purpose. So similarly, let's look at what humanity is doing. What have we done, regardless of what we think, whatever utopias we think should be the actuality? What have we done with our time? What have we done with our money? And let's look for the answer within the actuality, because that's the best way to be with what is. And then we can ride the fucking Bronco. We can get on the back of that Bronco and we can steer it, but don't try and fight it. Let's be surfers of this Earth's purpose. Let's also do meditation and sink in and feel the connection, because we are part of that organism. I love that idea of the hierarchy of humans being up top, being dissolved, and we are part of nature. We are of nature. We are a manifestation of what nature is. And we are very devoid of direct communication with the animal species, so we don't quite know what they're doing. But I don't think it's just like as good as saints and sinners. It's not like all nature is good and we're bad. There's probably numerous things going on within nature, within the animal kingdom, within the plant kingdom, that are also messed up, that are also sick. But you know what? It's up to them to change that. We don't have to go and save the world. We just have to face facts with what we are, look at the bigger picture of what we are a part of, and ask, cool, well, what made us? Why are we like this? Look at some sentience. If you're a person of faith or spirit or whatever, look for the sentience, look at the architecture, look at the why, look at the purpose for it. And if you're not a person of faith or spirit, then just look at the practical actuality, because that also works with atheists as well. This is what we do have access to. This is what is. How can we move on from here? And you know what? The easiest accessible handle that I know of is people in space. That's what we do. Look, we can create all sorts of things with space. That much I do know. So for me, the theater is one of the most ancient forms of manifestation magic, the most ancient forms of culture creation, the most ancient forms of reality sharing. They talk about it just takes that second person to dance. Those who could not hear the music thought those who were dancing were mad. But I'm sure many of us have seen that YouTube video with the one dude out there dancing, and it just takes that second person to join them. Why? Like I said, it's a multi-dimensional universe. When it's just you, it's a point, a single dot that doesn't have dimension. When you've got that other second person, it's suddenly duplicated, it's replicated in someone else, and they hold that reality. It's like, they hold back the world. That's why I chose the name Atlas. I want to hold back the world so we have this free space to play in. And that's what open world theater workshops and performances and games are all about. We have the space to play in. But when that space is created, are we willing to go with the moment? Are we willing to listen to our intuition, to perhaps receive messages from that future self that's sending it back? Are we willing to transfigure, transmorph, do things which are uncharacteristic, therefore dying and allowing our conservatism of conservation to dissipate, and instead the rebirth of something completely new to erupt? Well, I like to think that open world theater brings us to that point, but I'm still limited by one thing. That one thing being, I am the key decision point. I decide where I go. And I'm 37 years old. I've probably made most of the decisions about where to go that I can make, and I've ended up here. So my game, Vicarious, which I'm launching this Sunday, allows you to live through me. And it's a huge gift to me as well, because I can leverage the collective. I can leverage the collective resources, the collective intelligence, the collective dreams, and you can leverage my willingness to go and do things you might not want to do in public, or you might want to do in life. And there's so much power in that, because I could end up in a completely different future because you were able to guide me in a way that I would never think to do it, because there's so many inputs, right? One of the inputs could be my mental decision. Another input could be just chance. I randomly trip over. Another input could be a suggestion. I might see a sign and go, oh, okay, I'm going to go this way. Another input could be a recommendation from a friend. Another input could be, and so on and so on. There's so many different ways, yeah? And so with Vicarious, I'm opening the portal for you to be able to step into my body. Now, I love this idea. I'm so damn excited by this idea, and I know it's going to evolve into a really cool, I'm imagining like a streaming suit where I wear this thing, it's got a camera, maybe even a speaker so you can speak for me. That'd be cool, and you can actually steer me and go do things. At the moment, it's like alpha testing level. At the moment, it's just going to be through Facebook. We're going to be like this, live. I'm going around like, should I go left, should I go right, what should I do? But through that, we can potentially open up new realities, because you're going to steer me into the world. Also, Paisley Hart is going to be going with me as well, Reese Satchel. and we're going to be going into the world, and we're going to be seeing that once we've cleared the space through open world, once we've opened up our capacity to state shift, ideally, once we've opened our capacity to be embarrassed, to be other people, once we've opened our capacity to sing when we feel it, or dance in the streets, tap, 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 tap. When we're open enough just to let something come through, what can come through? And that's all about the source, the origination point, the intention. And you get to be the intention. In this case, if we looked at that 5-body analogy, you'd be the spiritual, you'd be like my spiritual body, and even to some degree my mental body, and you can actually infuse and play me. This has been really fun. I hope you've had fun. I'm having fun. So please do share, please do connect with me. If you're a storyteller, if you're a game designer, if you're a leader of any kind, if you're a pioneer, if you're a creator, if you're a human, and you know that there is some part of you that's bigger than the 5 bodies that you're currently encased in, if there's some conservation part of you, that aspect of conservatism which is trying to keep things at the status quo, and you have a feeling, well, maybe something needs to die so the new can be reborn, reach out to me or reach out to anyone around you. We all got this understanding. It's just about remembering. It's about unlearning all the social and cultural programming so we can get out of our way, so we can just have the stillness. I was doing a meditation with Lawrence Toy, and he's been studying this pretty cool meditation modality, clear vision, and my mind just paused and was thinking it wasn't cool for me to divulge that or say that. I hope it was. I trust it was. It just came through. Anyway, he's doing this awesome meditation technique. He taught me it, and there was a really interesting idea that his name is Stefan Sagan, I believe, this French guy. He was talking about how with water, it's a great conductor as it is. These particles are moving around, and certain electricity and stuff can go through it as a conductive material. When it freezes, when the particles slow down, it's not that it becomes a worse conductor, it becomes a superconductor. And it's because of the stillness that more power, more charge can go through it. I thought that's really interesting. Similar with meditation, our minds obviously conduct many different energies and intentions and inspirations. But maybe when the mind is still, which is the proposition, when the mind is still, even more consciousness, more inspiration, more energy can actually go through that superconductor because it's so still. I have no idea why I told you that, but I guess it's to do with this 5-body system and you guys being that inspiration, you being the source. Hey, Oda, this is fun. Yeah, I'm so glad. Yeah, if you guys are there, there's 5 people watching right now. If you're having fun, if you've got any questions, this can be participatory too. I hope you're having fun. I'm out on the street, moving, breathing, speaking. Feeling so alive by being on the road. Feeling so open as well. It's so important for me to be here. I don't know what it is. Talking about DeMartini's idea of you just do what your purpose is. I don't fully know what my purpose is. I know it's got something to do with play, something to do with open. Can you see it? Yeah. Something to do with public space. And I keep putting myself in public spaces, and when I do, I come alive. Rather than happiness, let's look for what we are interested in. That beautiful movie with Will Smith, The Pursuit of Happiness. It's not about attaining it, it's about the pursuit. I was reading Big Magic, a really good book by Elizabeth Gilbert. And she has this lovely quote, not in that book, but it's one that Naylor showed me, about the physics of the quest. I don't know it verbatim, but the concept is, if you step out into the world with an intention and you're willing to take everyone you meet as a teacher, and every object or everything that occurs as being in alignment with the journey, and you're willing to look at some pretty hard things about yourself, the truth will not be withheld from you. So it's this kind of idea that we can actually evoke a quest. We can actually call in if we are willing to perceive, because our mind is an amazing pattern recognition machine. So regardless of the external magic, regardless of if there are really, mythological creatures. If you look at Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, and if you look at maybe the third stage, the supernatural aid, there's basically a person or a figure that represents jumping from the threshold, from the call to adventure, when you're in your life and you go, you know what, I've got this kind of quest or some kind of journey I need to go on. In order to end up in the belly of the whale, which means you're being swallowed by the whale, you're about to be taken down into another world, you need the assistance of the supernatural aid. And this is like this person, imagine them there. Hello, it is your creature on the edge of the wood. Come down the burrow. This little little freak from another reality. Those people are the ones that sort of take us into this alternate reality. Oh, I'm on so many tangents. Can someone remind me why I was talking about that? Supernatural aid? Oh, Elizabeth Gilbert. Yes. So she's saying about the physics of the quest. So even if we don't think that there are supernatural aids all around us, even if we don't think there are really these people who have the answers to unlock our success or our happiness, we can at least say that somewhere within our consciousness, either superconscious or subconsciousness, we kind of know the things we're doing. We kind of know the self-sabotages, the habits, the unhealthy things. And so therefore we can shift our mind state and call and say, cool, I want the solutions. I want to know what to do next. And therefore the mind can start to pick out from around us the signals, the symbols, the totems, the talisman that we need in order to make those decisions. Because if you look around here, there's just so many words in the marketing. There's so many overheard conversations. There's so many ways to look out of the corner of your eye and think you see something which is not quite there. The point being, we can decide to be in that state of wonder. We can choose that we are going to see the patterns and decode our personal, subjective, autonomous, self-driven journey. And when we do so, well, according to Elizabeth Gilbert, the truth will not be withheld from us. So that's where I am when I step out on the road, like I'm currently doing, traveling around Australia. I'm on the quest. I'm in the journeyman's phase. There's this trilogy we often think about: the childhood, the adolescent, and the adult. Or in this case, it's the apprentice, the journeyman, and the master. The journeyman is the one who has accrued certain skills that has some value, but then goes out into the world and tries to trade those to learn more and also cross-pollinate ideas. And that's kind of where I am at the moment. I'm in my journeyman phase, still trying to find exactly where I'll end up, even trying to find out what my actual craft is. It's got something to do with game design, it's got something to do with theatre, it's got something to do with social experiments. And that's where you are right now. I wonder if we have collaborated, those people who are watching this, or if we could. I really want to collaborate with Jim Carrey, with Jason Silva, Kyle Cease. I wonder if one of those guys would perhaps see this, possibly other amazing minds that I don't even know. If you're watching this, tag someone else who likes to think, who likes to play, who likes to challenge social conventions. I've been having a lot of people linking me to other people and friend requests. I really appreciate